It is a spicy, spicy week this week, and we have all this pressure that's been building up in the energetic atmosphere. So we're feeling this electrical charge, and we haven't really had a release of this pressure. But guess what? It's gonna happen this week. We've got the Mars and Uranus conjunction exact on Wednesday, which is the same day as Inauguration Day, which symbolizes a liberation of sorts and a release of a buildup of pressure. So the status quo is shifting collectively, but it's also shifting in our own lives. And so that's what we'll be focusing on in this video as we look at the microcosm of the week and where we can make some of these individual upheavals happen. So we're staying in tune with this reinvention of this Aquarian energy because the sun enters Aquarius this week also to really kick off the new year, or as some are saying, the new age, because we've had all of this, the great conjunction that happened on the solstice with Jupiter and Saturn. Those guys are still hanging out in Aquarius. And we've got Mercury there giving us some karmic movement forward this week. And so it's really going to stir things up in a good way as we see more of this reinventive, interconnective, high tech sort of energy filtering into the energetic ethers here this week. So we've got this Mars and Uranus conjunction, which is going to be our blast off time. Last week, we talked about how it's good to sit there sometimes and wait until it doesn't feel like a conflict or feel like a big rush of something that we're pressured into. Where this week now, we're free of that Saturn square that was happening at the end of last week, which encouraged a more of a waiting it out, let's not fight about it kind of vibration, which is sort of that old angry dad energy we kept talking about. But that's gone. That's over this week. So, yes, we can even see that happening on a collective level, it being an inauguration of a new presidential term. So, this pressure that's been built up will release this week, and we can have some trust that we can guide that energy in our own life. We don't have to be afraid of Mars and Uranus because, yes, in a low vibration, it can be temper tantrums, it can be, flare ups, it can be sudden conflicts and that kind of thing, rebellions, which we've already seen. But we can work with this in our own lives, which affects the collective vibration. So it's asking us where we can break free of that sort of limiting thing we might have noticed last weekend, or that pattern, or that sort of past kind of chapter from all of the depressing and grief-stricken vibes of the last year. Where can we make a conscious decision to have some of this hope, but not only hold on to the hope, but do something with it. Moving forward with it, in an individual level, not just watching the news and crossing our fingers. It's saying, where are you, feeling this Uranus energy? Where is your pressure buildup happening? And this is happening for in a different place for each sign. But the energy is always very obvious when it is happening, because we feel that sort of touchy. We're like, let's not go there, or I'd rather not. I'm feeling kind of hot about that right now, or it's stressing me out. It feels frustrating. That's the universe kind of giving you a clue into the direction we need to lean for these upgrades. And it can be a little uncomfortable because, Saturn is our comfort from the past. It's that structure, that safety net. Well, now that some of those old structures are coming to a close, that sort of feeling of fear can set in because it's like unknowns. And with Uranus, things can seem a little out of order. So that's why I say radical and unexpected. With Uranus, because it's the things our linear mind doesn't quite put in order. But then Uranus is like doing things like this, where we're like, oh, later on we see how, okay, that made sense why I felt like breaking free of this certain pattern and doing this weird thing, to release some of this passion or some of this energy this week. So Aquarius season begins this week too, here on Tuesday, which is really the start of this, well, more of a start. We're getting waves of activations here into this Age of Aquarius sensation, where, in past updates, we've talked about the old news or like, last bouts of old news where it's like waves of the past kind of still filtering out. Where now it's kind of switching over to waves of the future. And so this week, going into this weekend and into next, we're in this future wave now. So it's like, let's acknowledge that and let's look toward the long term, because Saturn in Aquarius is about like, let's fix this not just for now, but for longer than now. So Aquarian energy is all about reinvention and interconnectivity and can be very gadgets and gizmos oriented, high tech, and we're seeing a lot of technology stuff happening right now. So maybe we'll see some more upgrades in our individual lives happen with that. But it will be, feel like work. It will feel like there's a little bit of Saturnian responsibility involved. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people by the end of the week were saying, Cumulus, like, I'm still feeling a heavy vibe. Like, everybody's been talking Age of Aquarius or exciting great conjunction. Well, it hasn't felt so great to me. Well, that's okay. Transitions and transformations sometimes are uncomfortable. And what we've seen are the things that we're moving away from. So now it's like we're, again, future waves. So it's like it can be fun to recommit. It can be fun to take on tasks and goals and responsibilities. So finding that sort of excitement, because Uranus is about excitement, where we vibrate to this level of like, you know, exciting, like what could happenness, and then that's when more magic starts to go on there. And so just being able to take that next step this week and sort of push the button, whereas last week we talked about the radical waiting game kind of thing. So going into the daily energies, we're starting this week with this powerful Uranus squared Jupiter vibration, which is a longer term cycle. So this electronic energy in the air where we're feeling this pressure of upheaval is not just like a this week kind of thing. The last time this happened was in summer 2013 and early spring 2014, giving us this sort of decision to break free into a new expansive blueprint, and this is part of a bigger picture scale collectively where we're doing an upgrade to our financial systems, because Uranus and Taurus is all about radical change for our comforts and securities. So this being inauguration day with this Mars and Uranus blast off kind of energy can give some signs of that into the coming presidential term, in my opinion, where we notice this Taurian energy of reconstruction. The last time Uranus was in Taurus, almost 84 years ago, was the recovery of the Great Depression during the time of the New Deal, which is very interesting. Some of the parallels that have been happening with this time of Uranus and Taurus. So, we could expect some creative solutions here as far as our financial systems go that happen pretty quickly. With Mars and Uranus, a lot can happen in a day. We don't really have to wait for it sometimes, but it's having that trust to be able to connect when the energy's there to connect it, sort of like a lightning bolt. You get everything lined up and then it's like, psh, here you go. So as we move into the weekend here, well, there's Sun going into Aquarius on Tuesday. I didn't exactly point that out. 3:34 p.m. So Tuesday going into Wednesday, there we have it, and obviously very in line with collective events there. And the pressure will feel a little less, I think, as we go into this weekend. Once the Mars Uranus thing starts to wane, it will be a little bit like less touchy. But some ways to deal with that, just really quick: if we're feeling tense, if we're feeling that frantic energy, if we're feeling that pressure still, I I've heard suggestions from people with Mars and Uranus conjunct in their chart that say it is like a hot machine that could just blow up at any minute. So the best solution is to either walk away from it, let it cool down, or just very gradually sort of give it that space, release the pressure, in increments. So that's how we can work with that in our own life. We don't need to go full on, let's have the grand finale thing happen. We just have to do like a controlled release valve, or take some breaks and walk away when things start to feel too much, and if our interactions with others go along those lines, same thing, especially for Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You're definitely in this vibe of the pressure cooker vibration, and feeling all of these Saturnian commitments and possible vibes of feeling a little isolated or burdened, going into this weekend. But have trust that these burdens, feelings are part of your new responsibility, your new cycle, especially if you have Saturn in those signs too. Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn in Leo, Saturn in Taurus, Saturn in Scorpio. This is your time to be constructing a long-term thing that's like, ugh, like you can't get all that done in one day. And so we want to be careful as once we release this pressure of the possible hangover that can happen, not only for the fixed signs, but for all signs, where we can feel this sort of energetic depression set in after a big release of energy. And Saturn conjunct the Sun can feel very melancholic, and sort of depressing or isolating, cloudy, that kind of vibration. But let's work with that in the best way possible, by just moving slow and seeing it as laying bricks, laying bricks to our new Aquarian dream, pad or something like that. Because once the Sun moves into Aquarius, this great conjunction becomes active again. We have to remember this is part of this whole great conjunction thing that we're dealing with. Not just because it's not exact anymore doesn't mean it's not still happening, And then next week on Thursday, you can see it there, the full moon in Leo. That's when we have the Sun conjunct Jupiter, the Jupiter side of that conjunction, which is all about growth and expansion, and a very happy generally energy. So let's have some trust that we're getting this pile of to-do lists out of the way early, and getting the work done in advance, and then we can see this very reveal of a new expansive energy going into next week. But we'll talk about that more in the next update. Mars or square Jupiter on Saturday also supports this motion, this action toward a business concept or an endeavor. We don't want to go too much though with Mars square Jupiter. It can be excessive, so where we're seeing this sort of reclamation of power, or like, things sort of switch over. We definitely don't want to be like, nah, 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 nah. We don't want to be putting gas on the fire kind of thing. We want to go more into Venus sextile Neptune, which is the feminine energies of creativity, performance art, healing art, self-care, recovery. It's earth and water energy. So let's do some grounding, and so that's one big thing I didn't mention with Mars conjunct Uranus is yes, Mars is asking us to take a big step this week to encourage a liberation, but also remembering to stay grounded, remembering to take those moments and those breaks. And that's the first thing Taurus would say, is like, hey, everybody, let's watch some Netflix for a minute and, eat some vegan pizza. Like, things have been kind of frantic. Let's chill out for a minute, and we'll do that in the morning, So that's a good balance to have this week. And especially Taurus, I know that you like the slow and steady route, and this week just might not be as slow and steady as what you're used to, but just let's have some trust that we're in the new waves now, okay? And that'll be more visible going into early next week with Sun squaring Uranus, and which is this the real karmic breakthrough, and then Neptune squaring the nodes, which is our decision to move forward into our new dream, or sort of get stuck in the murkiness and confusion of the past if we're rehashing stuff, or if we're actually just kind of taking these nebulous and imaginative steps toward our new sort of Aquarian season. So if you enjoy these videos, this is actually what I do, for a living. So any sort of tips or monthly subscriptions on Patreon actually go to basic living expenses, like running water and electricity, which I really, really value those things. So if you want to help, keep these going, keep that going, you can do that, or you can also go to my website, astrologywithcumulus.com, for personal readings. And I thank you for any subscriptions or shares to help get the algorithm going here, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you so much, star signs. Bye bye.